obviously someone who originates from Northern Ireland originally, you take a very keen interest in precisely what went on with the protocol and what has been now proposed with the Westminster framework, with the Windsor framework, I should say. Just first of all, I'm very interested to see what your first impressions were to the Prime Minister's announcement on Monday.
Well, Tom, I actually live full-time in Northern Ireland. Now I have done since I gave up being a Member of Parliament. So I'm very interested. It's my home. Now, the reality is that Rishi Sunak made a very optimistic, upbeat speech, which if you read it and listened to him, you'd have thought, wonderful, everything's solved, it's marvellous. The DUP will be running back into the Stormont tomorrow. The reality is, there are a lot of documents to do with his speech. There's a lot of detail. The most interesting one, and I've read a lot of things now about it, but not everything I can say, but the EU document that came out is the most interesting, because practically everything that Rishi said, then you look at what the EU are saying, and of course it's quite different. Sometimes similar, but usually different, with a very clear interpretation of the fact that the EU law and EU justice courts and EU generally are still in charge. So I think, first of all, the Prime Minister, I welcome that he's allowing and saying there'll be a lot of time for people to read it properly. But, of course, in the end, even if the DUP oppose it, it will go through Parliament because Labour is supporting it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the executive will come back, or that President Biden will get his visit, which is what an awful lot of this rush is about. President Biden wants to come in April, and he can't come if the Northern Ireland executive's not sitting, because that would show the Belfast Agreement was broken.
Which is fascinating, because it does seem that this was all done. Number 10 has denied for the last few months that they were working to any sort of deadline. But behind the scenes, it does seem that the 25th anniversary of the signing of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement has been some sort of informal deadline in all of this. What effect do you think that that's had on the talks?
Oh, I think without a doubt the Irish government have been chasing and pushing quite a lot, and have been a little bit, I would say, more flexible recently, because they are desperate to get President Biden there too. But also behind the scene, the Americans, don't underestimate the influence of American officials in America on our foreign service and on wanting to have this visit. And of course, I'm sure Rishi Sunak would like to have it as well. So it's definitely been there. There's been that push to get something. And I just think anyone who reads it will realise that sometimes I think Downing Street and people advising the Prime Minister don't really understand Northern Ireland. And a lot of members of Parliament, I'm afraid, only take an interest in Northern Ireland when something like this is happening. And I think if they knew what was really going on, they would see that for 2 or 3 years now, people have been speaking out about the protocol, saying all the things now that Rishi Sunak is saying has been broken about it. We've been saying that for months and months and months, and now we've got something that he is saying is wonderful and is really ensuring Northern Ireland's place in the United Kingdom. It doesn't actually come out like that when you read the documents. However, the DUP will look at it, everyone is going to examine it, and we will just going to have to wait and see. But every day I think we'll find something new that is not quite what Rishi Sunak said.